All right, so today you are going to be looking at lesson 1, graphing points on a coordinate plane. You should have already tried to fill out your goals on the very front of this new chapter's packet. So coordinate plane should be complete review from 5th and 6th grade math. So I'm going to go through, and then you should be in your packet plotting each point, and then we're going to name and talk about naming quadrants. Naming quadrants might be something that you need probably the most work on. So graph each point on the coordinate plane at the right. So we're going to use this coordinate plane on the right to graph these 6 points. Remember, when you graph points, that you have to use the x-axis first. So that is the horizontal axis that I'm highlighting in orange. And then you have to graph the point on the y-axis second. So you always go left or right first, and then up or down second to create the 1 point. So for point number 1, 3, 1, we're going to go over 3 spaces and up 1 to place that point on the coordinate plane. And then you also make sure, if there's a name for that point, that you call it that point. So that point is x. For point number 2, we have -2, -2. So that means we're going to start at the origin where you say that, see the O, origin. You're going to go 2 places to the left and 2 places down and place a dot and call it T. Point number 3, we have +1 to the right, 2 spaces down for -2, and we're going to call that point C. Point number 4, because point number 4, letter U, has a 0 in it, that means we don't move left or right. We simply go from the origin and we count 3 spaces down to -3 and call that point U. Point number 5, letter P, is the opposite of point U. So we start with the x value of 2, so we go 2 spaces to the right. And because there's a 0, we don't go up or down, we just place it on the x-axis. And we call that point P. And the last point, point 6, is -4. So we're going to start at the origin, go 4 spaces to our left for the negative, and 1 space down, and that's point A. So in the next section, we're going to talk about naming quadrants. So in the coordinate plane, there are 4 quadrants. We start with quadrant number 1, and we write them as Roman numerals. So Roman numeral number 1 is a capital I. That quadrant is the all positive quadrant at the upper right-hand corner. Then we move in a counterclockwise direction for quadrant 2. Quadrant 2 is located to the left of quadrant 1, and to write that as a Roman numeral, we call that double I. Then we move down into quadrant 3, and quadrant 3 are all negative numbers. You can see all the numbers on the left are negative, and all the numbers going down are negative. So when we write that as triple I. Then we go across and to our right, and we call this quadrant 4. Quadrant 4 has a special Roman numeral. We call this Roman numeral IV. And that stands for the number 4. And then if we were to complete this circle to go back up to quadrant 1 in a counterclockwise motion, we would go upward. So whenever we are naming quadrants, we always want to go in a counterclockwise pattern. So starting at the top, going to our left, going down, going right, and going up. When we name the quadrants, we simply just write the the quadrant's Roman numeral for the letter. So if we look for letter X, which we've already plotted, we can see that letter X is in quadrant number 1. So we call that I. Point T is in quadrant number 3, triple I. Point C is located in quadrant 4. Point U is not located in a quadrant, and I'm going to highlight this with a darker blue on the point. This point actually is directly on the y-axis, and you can see I highlighted Y and 4. Any point touching that vertical line is called the y-axis, so it's not in a quadrant. Point P, also, I'm going to highlight that with a darker blue. That lies directly on the x-axis that I have highlighted in orange. So when we name that, we don't name it a quadrant, we name it the x-axis. And then point A is in quadrant 3. So we didn't have any points in quadrant 2, and sometimes that happens, but so you shouldn't have quadrant 2 written down at all. So question 13, does every point lie in a quadrant? And you should be able to say no, and the explanation behind that is points U and P can lie on an axis. So write that answer in. Or points can be on the origin if there's 0, 0. Question 14. When a point lies on the x-axis, what do you know about its y-coordinate? So let's look at point P up at the top. Point P was on the x-axis. So what do we know about its y-coordinate? Well, we have 2, 0. So the 0 is our y-coordinate. So we can say that the y-coordinate is 0. And then when a point lies on the y-axis, so let's take a look at point U, and that is 0, 3, we can see that its x-coordinate is 0. Okay, so down in this coordinate plane, I want you to take a few minutes with a partner, and the video is going to pause, and you are going to identify all the coordinate points and the quadrants listed for the object. So you're going to pause this video. I want you to fill every answer out, and once you and a partner have this filled out, you're going to come back and watch to check your answers. All right, so you should have filled this out with a partner. So let's go through all of the different answers. What point is the circle at? The circle is at point -5, 4, and that is in quadrant 2. The square is at point 3, 6, and that is in quadrant 1. The hexagon, so a hexagon is a 6-sided shape, and that is located in quadrant, or in point -3, 6, and that is quadrant 2. The frog is located at point -6, -6, and that is quadrant 3. The fish is located at point 2, 5, and that is quadrant 4. Make sure you write the Roman numeral 4, I, then V. The pentagon, the 5-sided shape, is located at point 5, -1. That is also quadrant 4. The right triangle is located at point 6, 2, and that is in quadrant 1. The equilateral triangle is located at point -5, -3, quadrant 3. The crab is located at point -2, 2. Remember, you're always naming the x point first, and that is quadrant 2. And the snail is located at point 6, -3, quadrant 4. So when you are naming coordinate points, you make sure that you always name the x coordinate first and the y coordinate second, and then you can name the quadrant if it's asked. So that should be your review of graphing points on a coordinate plane. refer to these notes. These should all be in your packet. And now you're going to do the check in your packet as well as enter the